Good evening, everybody, and welcome. It's another ICCC Thursday Talks. Good evening, everybody, and welcome. It's a fantastic topic today. It's something that a lot of us have probably wondered. What can astrology, Vastu, and Feng Shui do for me, for my life, for my career, for my business? Today, to answer that question, we have a very eminent panel. We have Joey Bujold, astrologer, somebody who lives in the Toronto area, somebody that's learned astrology, and we'll hear more from him about how astrology can help us. We've got Kalpesh Joshi, who's a member of the Indo-Canada Chamber of Commerce, and somebody that I've had the privilege of working with, as well as visiting India a couple of times. So Kalpesh ji is a Vastu expert. So welcome, Kalpesh ji. And last but not least, we have Paul Eng. Paul is a Feng Shui expert. And Paul just reminded me when we were sitting around here that he's been on this world, on Earth, 29 years more than I have. And Paul does not look 29 years older than me. So Paul, you got to tell us the secret of that as well. But we want to hear from you secrets about Feng Shui. So on that note, I'll introduce myself. My name is Vijay Thomas. I am the president of the Indo-Canada Chamber of Commerce. As a day job, I also run a software company called Tangentia. And I've been with the Indo-Canada Chamber of Commerce for the last 3 to 4 years, and I really enjoy our time here, especially bringing this Thursday talks. And as we do this, I'd like to thank everybody that attends the Thursday talks. Thank you very much for your patronage. Thank you very much for making it every week. If this is your first time, welcome, and we'd like to see you again. So every Thursday, 4:30, just come in here. There will be something interesting happening. So here's what we want to talk about today. So if you wondered how astrology, Vastu, Feng Shui could impact your life or business, we'll learn today how nature's infinite forms representing ancient wisdom have a proven efficacy and a track record of accuracy in predicting the future. So in uncertain times such as these, it always helps to get some insight into what the future holds. And we have, as I mentioned, Joy Bujold, Kalpesh Joshi, and Paul Eng. So moving on, a little bit about our ICCC Small Business Assist program. We provide a phone-in counseling and email service. If you have any help for your small business, you can send an email to ICCC@icconline.org. Just a Small Business Assist program. We'll connect you to one of our experts, somebody from within our organization, somebody on the board of directors, somebody that's an expert in the domain. Could be IT security, could be finance, could be accounting. So 1 hour of support for free, after which you can decide, if you want to, do something else. But sometimes some of us need a little sounding board, and that's what we provide. Moving on. A little bit of a disclaimer, especially today, because we're going to have astrologers, we're going to have a Vastu expert, we're going to have a Feng Shui expert, and those of you who are going to listen to this and say, you know what, my business did not grow by 100%. Okay, so right up there, the first line says, the information provided webinars conducted by ICCC for general information purposes does not constitute legal or professional advice. Okay. The rest of it in the middle, please read through it yourself. At the bottom, the views expressed by the speakers are their own personal opinion and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the ICCC. So basically, if anything goes wrong, you cannot sue us. So that's right there. Okay. So with that out of the way, we're going to start. First presenter. We're going to have a session where we'll go through each of them. They give us a little description about themselves, what they do, and then we'll have it open for Q&A with the audience. So our first speaker would be Joy Bujold. Joy is a yogi, Vedic astrologer, and an Ayurvedic life coach practicing out of Mississauga. He is certified by the Council of Vedic Astrology as a Jyotish Visharada. Joy grew up in a small town in rural eastern Quebec, Canada. Having undergone a different number of transformational experiences early age, he became drawn to Eastern philosophy and yogic meditation. His experiences led him to study the Vedic sciences with several notable teachers. He continues to learn and enthusiastically propagate the light of truth and higher knowledge wherever he goes. So over to you, Joey. We'd like to hear more about your adventures as well as your craft, and as much as you can tell us in 5 to 7 minutes. So over to you, Joey.
Well, thank you very much, Vijay, and I'd like to extend a special thank you to the Indo-Canadian Chamber of Commerce for having me here today. It's such a joy and a privilege to be here with esteemed panelists. And we're going to be talking about sister sciences today. And so to preface a little bit about Jyotish, I just wanted to give context. The great Guru Paramahansa Yogananda, when he first came to the West, he first came to America in 1920. He was told by his guru to come here and teach yoga. And this is somewhat applicable to the conversation we're having today. His guru told him before leaving, he blessed him and he said, "Forget you were born among Hindus and don't adopt all the ways of the Americans. Take the best of both peoples," he said in a calm way of wisdom. "Be your true self, a child of God. Seek and incorporate into your being the best qualities of all your brothers scattered over the earth in various races." And I think that's very fitting. When you look at how business has grown in India, and you compare it to what's happening in the West, you see a real mindset of this best of the West and best of the East coming together, and that mindset. And I think it's part of the culture. And coming from someone who was exposed to the Indian culture, a little bit later in life, I resonated with it so much because that deeper layer of truth permeates everything, because you're following Sanatana Dharma, you are following the principles of eternal truth of harmony with the universe. And that's kind of what we're talking about today. So let's talk a little bit about Jyotish and the perhaps what we think it is and what we think it isn't, because most people, at least if you grew up in the Indian culture, a lot of people, a lot of families consult Jyotishis, and for any time they take important decisions and whatnot. And to some extent, Jyotish has become very much a predictive science, where Jyotishis are looking at the movement of time. We have time, we have our desires that sort of bring us into this world and make us do certain things. And, over time, our desires change. And so as Jyotishis, we are interpreting the qualities of time as it relates to you. And so ultimately, the best lesson of Jyotish, if I were to sit here and tell you, your business is going to grow by this amount, you're going to have all of these things happen to you, your son or daughter will get married at this age, and I were to only give you predictions, I'm doing you a favor, yes, absolutely. But according to me, the greatest thing that Jyotish can give you is what we call Atmagyan, which is knowledge of the self, true knowledge of your path, of your purpose, and your destiny. Because here's the thing, as I mentioned earlier, we have these planetary influences that are, constantly guiding and influencing all of our decisions, all of our desires, all of our mindset. A good Jyotishi can actually help work with a person to help unlock, because sometimes our relationship with the grahas isn't always that great. And so, through different practices, through different rituals, through interpreting the quality of time, we can actually grow our relationship with the grahas, and we can improve our results overall. We can't necessarily completely alter our destiny, but we can improve definitely the quality of our lives through Jyotish. And to me, this is one of the main strengths of Jyotish. And the thing is that we have astrology all over the world. You know, astrology has crept up in different, you know, points in history. And, you know, what makes Vedic astrology so different? Well, if you were to ask me and the tradition with which I'm studying, that body of knowledge was preserved so well over hundreds and thousands of years because of the precision of the Sanskrit language. So when you're studying Sanskrit, you are unzipping the language of the rishis and you're contemplating on it. And that sound is very sacred, and embedded in it is so much depth and so much information that it was so well preserved. And so all of these sciences, including Vastu Shastra and Feng Shui, what we're doing is actually, like, the Jyotish is looking through the movement of time, but we are analyzing the Pancha Mahabhutas, the 5 great elements. So you have space, air, fire, water, and earth. And again, these are loose English translations. The Sanskrit words are more, you know, are more reflective of the truth. And so we're interpreting this over time. And so these sciences, the sciences that you're going to hear from Kalpesh and from our Feng Shui expert, they can work together and help a person to increase their prosperity, to increase the quality of their lives. And so, you know, it's really, really important. And then the other thing that Jyotish does also, because we are time doctors and we help you to understand your karma, we can actually help you through other aspects of Jyotish. Like I've talked right now about Jataka, which is natal astrology, which is a position of planets at the time you were born. But there's other branches of astrology as well, such as Prashna. If you have important questions and you want to get to the root layer of you know, what's really going on, you can consult a Jyotishi and do Prashna, and you know, you can gain more level, like more understanding of that. And then there's also Muhurta as well. Muhurta is to find auspicious timings. So when you are starting your business, when you are launching your website, or when you're trying to do anything that requires Jaya, which requires victory, you want to try to find the optimal time to be able to do that. And so astrology can afford us all of these things. So anyway, as I mentioned, it's such a pleasure to be here today. And I'm going to hand it back over to you, Vijay, because I think I've talked enough here, and we can move on to my other distinguished colleague.
Thank you, Joey. That was fantastic. You know, it is. I think gave us a good view. I think I have a few questions. I think the audience has questions as well. So you know, we'll get to you. You know, don't go away. And everybody in the audience, if you're on the Facebook, please send in your questions in the comments. And if you're on Zoom, you can send it and put it in the Q&A section. And if you put it in the Q&A section, Joey can have a look at it as well, and he could probably even answer it live. Now, coming to our next speaker is Kalpesh Joshi. Kalpesh Joshi is from Vastu Vision. As the name suggests, he is a Vastu expert, and he is a globe-trotting Vastu expert. Now, how do I know that? I know I'm connected with him on Facebook, and every second week he's got a picture of himself on a plane going somewhere. So that is the truth. I do know he's, and also I have ran into him at airports in different parts of the world multiple times. So you know, he is a globe-trotting Vastu Shastri, provides a professional service to residential, commercial, and industrial projects. He manages operations in Toronto and New York. And I don't know if he's got it down there somewhere, but I'm going to say this out there. I don't know if I'm supposed to, but Kalpesh also has a very, very, very VIP client, an ex-president of the United States. So hopefully he's going to tell you that. I'm not going to spill the beans here in terms of names, but he's got some big name customers as well. So with that, Kalpesh ji, over to you. Kalpesh, are you there?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vijay, for the nice introduction and the very detailed one. Yes. So basically, I practice Vastu, and as it says, Vastu brings peace, prosperity, and happiness. So, if you talk about me, I tried my life doing different thing to have to become a Vastu Shastra. So I tried several things. So I was a pilot. I did the marine engineering. I am a hotelier. I did several things, but I ended up doing these things. So this is what is now my life from last 25 years. I own a multinational company having offices in New York, London, England, Toronto, and India. We have clients over 45 countries in the world. And as Vijay mentioned, I've been appreciated by White House, by Bill Clinton for my services. And I have his appreciation letter and correspondence. So yes, small person to any big entity, either it is a personal, professional, or a corporate, they do need these kind of services. And yes, now we talk about what is a Vastu Shastra. So Vastu Shastra, as Joey said, Vastu complies of the 5 elements of the universe, which is air, fire, water, earth, and sun. And our human body is also made out of these 5 elements of the universe. So where you get those comfort zone where all these 5 elements are balanced. So we have to make sure that where those 5 elements will get balanced, and the world is too big, but we have to make sure that our 10 by 10 square feet or 100 by 100 square feet or 1000 by 1000 square feet or a 1 acre of land, that acre of land has to be Vastu compliant. To be very precise, 4 directions, 4 corner, and these 5 elements of the universe. If those things get balanced at our place, does not want this. Everybody wants this. So we have to make sure that if we have all these things, we are the best. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah, so 4 key takeaway for each individual who is watching. So the first important thing is so where you are, how you are facing, how you are sleeping, that will make lots of difference in your life. Now the second thing, whenever you talk about Vastu, the Vastu is basically not
Kalpesh, I think of Kalpesh.
So 4 directions. So we have to figure out where are. Oh, okay. So now it's better.
Yeah, or maybe what you can do is just switch off your what's the thing called? Switch off your video.
Okay.
Maybe it will conserve bandwidth.
That will help.
Yes, let's try.
Yes. So basically, as I said, the second takeaway is 4 directions, 4 corners. So when you figure out where is the 4 directions and 4 corners you have, and those will help you to make the things right. Number 3 is the material, whatever the material you use at your home, that also influence the energy flow. And Vastu is all about the energy. So either you have a dining table, is it a wooden, natural wooden, or it is a glass one, or it is stone table. And even it is the shape, it's a rectangular, square, or the round. So each small thing will have the influence on the, Vastu energy movement and the flow. And the 4th thing and very important thing is the color. So the color, we know each color has a different thing, but all the things water, so water directions and the water related color, so those things helps. So these are the 4 major things. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah, and the Vastu is based, what is Vastu? So Vastu is based on the Vastu Purush, Vastu body, which represents the science of Vastu. And Vastu Shastra is out of, India has a 64 different art, and out of the 64 different art, one of the art is called Vastu Shilpa Shastra. And if you follow that, and it's literally mean, Vastu Shastra is literally mean Indian architecture. So if you follow this, you are living in peace, prosperity, and happiness. Yeah, and now more important, we have seen like everybody is home from last almost a year working from home, and now few multinational company, the giant has said that it is better to stay home and work. So I'll just briefly tell you that how you can set up your home office into the right direction, which can maximize your efficiency. So basically for everybody and anybody who are in technical field or anything, if they faces east, is the good direction. The east direction will give you like more grasping power, and it will let you gather like more information. So try to have set up your home or office table facing east, and who people are into the finance and management, they should face north. So they are looking always as financial management and growing that business. Next slide, please. Yeah, so that is all, and we have office right here. People can contact, and this is the contact information. And let's see what people have a question for. Thank you.
Thank you, Kalpesh ji. You know, I think you will have a lot of questions. I'm sitting in my office, and I was quickly thinking, where is my direction, right? I mean, so you know, I think east, and then I was like, maybe I'm management, maybe it's north. Okay, so we'll probably you know, have to ask you some questions to get that clarified. With that, let's move to our next speaker. Our next expert is Paul Eng. Paul is a Feng Shui expert. As I mentioned, Paul is a very well-known Feng Shui expert in the Toronto area. He's a philosopher and a geomancer. Paul, you will have to explain to our listeners what a geomancer means. And he served customers in over 66 countries, and over 40 developers and builders have used him, and 9 banks. So and most of us know the banks know how to make money. So he's helped them make money, including ICCC Bank in the year 2003, 2008 across Canada. Since the mid-1980s, he's practiced Chinese geomancy and astrology to guide many individual business people to prosper. His book covers many walks of life and nationalities. With that, I'd like to hand over to Paul. Paul, if you can give us share a little bit of your wisdom and knowledge, and something that, you know, what a little bit of your craft and a little bit about yourself in 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Vijay, and thank you everyone for having me. This is my 15th speech since the new year for this year. Okay. I had a similar background as Vijay, believe it or not. I graduated from the University of Waterloo in 1972 and got my business administration degree from U of T afterwards. So that's the academic background. And I've been doing what I do now on the sidelines since 1985. And since 1993, 29 years ago, I've been doing this full time. Okay, now, geomancy is actually 2 words. Let me simply explain it. Geo means the earth. Man means mankind. CY means the science of. So geomancy or Feng Shui, which is a layman term, means the harmonization between earth and mankind. Okay, and I had a few interesting major projects to share with my friends here. In 1993, January, I happened to advise the then elected governor of Hidalgo in Mexico, and I Feng Shui his entire state in the helicopter. Okay, and to identify how every segment of the state should function, whether it's for tourism, for sports, for industry, for commercial, residential. It's a small state. And subsequently, Hidalgo had become the wealthiest state in all of Mexico. The second major event I did was in November 1996. I was invited by the United Nations World Conference of Mayors to be keynote speaker in Kingston, Jamaica, to speak to over 36 mayors, mainly from the United States and the Caribbean, and even one from China, but none from Canada. It's be said that way. So to explain how to use the technology of Feng Shui to change the cities of the future, to make the future a better future for the world. Okay, so that's basically what it does. But Feng Shui is based on several factors: time and space, Now, and also time, big, major or macro Feng Shui and micro Feng Shui. The two examples I gave everyone were called the macro Feng Shui. It's how to do Feng Shui for whole country, for whole city. In fact, I did a big proposal how to change Kingston, Jamaica. And that was 1996. By year 2000, they did follow exactly what I suggest to change the highway from the airport to downtown Kingston, and subsequently rebuild the entire airport. I said these two must be done first for the country to have a chance to prosper. So that's called macro Feng Shui. And also for micro Feng Shui would be many levels. One level would be for corporations. Like I done a lot of work in the world, Indonesia in particular, and China. And most projects I did would exceed $100 million each. And most factories or manufacturers would have space in excess of 250,000 square feet. So that's the medium-sized Feng Shui, I call it. Now, the real micro Feng Shui is a day-to-day life. A small office, small business, small home, big home, even a 20,000 square foot home is still regarded as a micro Feng Shui, small, compared with the major ones I do. Okay, and today my work, and I have personally traveled to over 66 countries. Clients who come to see me are throughout the world, from as far as Nigeria, Africa, so over 70 countries. Okay, so why do they want me? Well, as the two masters said earlier, for peace, for prosperity, but it's way more than that, for health, wealth, relations, you name it. Okay, so in the ancient art of Feng Shui, the name was only used since the 4th century China. Before the 4th century, it was not called Feng Shui, it was called geography. Okay, and after the 4th century, it got renamed to Feng Shui. The original term, the German term, geomancy. Okay, so the original way of Feng Shui originated from military maneuvers. That's what Feng Shui got created. And after that, it was used to decide how to bury the important people. And many years later, then it became used in the common folks. So it went through thousands of years of history. Okay? Now, so it's divided into the 5 elements, which are metal, water, wood, fire, and earth. Now, in order to do Feng Shui for a business or for home in particular, you must determine the elements of people living there or working there, especially the key people. And every human being is born with 3 different elements. The elements are calculated from the date of birth. So the 3 elements are the life element, okay, which is buried inside their year, month, day, and hour. And that controls their personalities, their health, wealth, people relations, and life cycles. And the second element is called the geomancy or Feng Shui element, okay, which determines how they should position themselves, what directions, what colors. And the third element is called location element. Why some people will succeed in New York, why some people will succeed in Toronto or Calgary or Vancouver. All these will be hidden, the secrets are hidden in their date of birth. So everyone is different. So we must identify these 3 separate elements to do a good job. But as far as Feng Shui is concerned, the most important element is the Feng Shui element. So you calculate the person to determine the elements and to determine the settings. Okay, so there's no fixed position where there's a best or worst, because to do Feng Shui in a home in particular is like a marriage. Okay, even the worst home may have the best owner. Okay, even the if it's the wrong one for the person, even the best home could become a bad home, and vice versa. So if you have a lousy home, but it fits this person, chances are it can be turned around. So Feng Shui divided also into time and space. Nothing is permanent. First of all, you must calculate the life cycle of the country, of the city, and of the individual space, because every space may have a different life cycle. And every cycle would dictate where these power centers are in. And then you go to the space settings, because the way Feng Shui works is a science. It's physics, to be exact. Since my background is IT, I like to do things systematically. Okay, basically you collect energy into certain points and re-emit to the surroundings. So the way you manipulate this energy affect the business, affect the well-being of people in a home. Okay, if it's sharp energy, for example, I gave you a live example. Back in 1994, when Don Cousins became the mayor of Markham in Toronto, okay, he and I went back years as good friends. So one thing I did for him, okay, that year right after the election to become mayor was to help him reset the office. Now, the mayor before him was Romans. You probably heard of the name. He's been mayor for 3 terms or more. And when I looked at his original setting, I said, Mr. Romans must have major problems with the back, the spine. And they told me, in fact, it's true. He died of back cancer because he was sitting with a big pillar right behind his back, and he's been sitting there for 3 terms. That's over 10 years. Okay. So I repositioned Don Cousins sitting to fit his birthday the best. And I guarantee him to be mayor for 3 terms at least. And he should not run for the 4th term based on his date and time of birth. So I did his live reading. And you know what? He won the 4th term, he forgot what I said. And as soon as he won the 4th term, both of his kidneys failed. Okay, a few years back, he finally died of kidney failure. Okay, so because in our life, there are patterns to our life where to calculate when our high points are, when our low points are. So what is Feng Shui to do with it? Feng Shui is a tool. So when we are on a low point in our life in particular, we want to carry in as much energy as we can to help out instead of giving up our life. And Feng Shui is a powerful tool. Or when we are flying high in our life, we want Feng Shui to help to bring it to a higher level. So because I'm a scientist in terms of background, so that means also a lot of my clients are professionals. In fact, I have a lot of lawyer clients and doctor clients all over the world. But to date, my most important and biggest projects are in Jakarta, Indonesia. Okay, 23 projects still handling, totaling over $2 billion US. And 3 projects I work with a very interesting architect in the world, hand in hand. That's Thomas Atkins, the one who designed the Albert Hotel in Dubai. And I've done quite a bit of work in Dubai myself. So that's how you merge such an ancient 1,000-year-old science and arts. So is it science or is it artistic? I would say the whole process is science, but the result had to be arts. Okay, if it's ugly, terrible, immobile, that's terrible Feng Shui. So good Feng Shui had to be appealing, had to be scientific. So, well, I hope I haven't exceeded time, and thank you very much for letting me talk about it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Paul. We will please hang in there. We're going to get some questions. Thank you very much. I learned a lot just listening to you. And I think now we'll take questions from the audience. You know, we've got some questions here. We've got this question is you know what, maybe this is for all of you. This is a really good question. It says, with science having ruled Pluto out of the 9th planet in our solar system, and noting from history that several kings, statesmen, dynasties, and kingdoms who believed in astrology were wiped off the planet, How reliable, accurate, and useful are the astrology, Vastu, and Feng Shui to us, mankind? In these modern times, do we have to trust these techniques? How serious are these really? So very fundamental question, and I'll ask this to all three of you. So there were a lot of kingdoms that believed in this. They all got wiped out. So, you know, and science kind of rules today. But you've all said that there is science behind this as well. But just for the audience, let's start with you, Joey.
Absolutely. Vijay, thank you for sending that question. You know, the thing is that in order for something to be a science, it needs to have replicable results. And the first part of the question I want to kind of do away with, because with the three outer planets, Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus, they're not mentioned in Shastra. It's not to say they cannot be used, but you know, according to me, you know, there's enough with the Navagraha that, you know, we can pull out from horoscopy. Secondly, the thing is that if it's not replicable, then it's basically useless. So we need to have a scientific attitude when we are practicing astrology. There are some issues with respect to you know, doing studies that involve significant amounts of data just because we're collecting birth dates. But you know, a lot of that has been drilled into me has been, you know, if a person, let's say, has a propensity for kidney disease, as my esteemed colleague Paul mentioned, there needs to be some astrological signification of that. And furthermore, if I look at another chart that has a similar, I need to be able to suss that out when I'm doing it. Otherwise, it has no value. Now, the other part of your question has to do with empires and dynasties. For that, I would just simply answer back that, you know, everything that is created ultimately is destroyed. And the thing is that as a Jyotishi, we interpret, you know, the movement of time, the quality of time, but for every kingdom that has launched an attack on another kingdom, you know, presumably, at least in, you know, in more ancient times and more, you know, in India, both dynasties had astrologers working for them. So my advice would be to go back in history and hire the astrologer of the army that won, because he was the good one. So I don't know, that's a little bit of humor, but hopefully that answers your question. It's good to have a healthy amount of doubt in everything and approach it with a little bit of skepticism. For me, the true proof is in the pudding. You know, when I sit down with clients from, you know, all over North America and across Europe, I had a client from India today, and to look at their chart and to be able to understand specific issues in their life without even having met them, to me, that's evidence enough that the science works. But that said, it's a very complicated science. Not everybody gets it right. So you have to be very cautious whenever you're engaging an astrologer as well. You know, that's, you know, caveat emptor.
Okay. Thank you, Joey. And Paul, I'll ask you the same question, right? I mean, you know, and I think you kind of alluded a little bit in terms of saying at the macro Feng Shui level, there is a time period and things have to keep changing as well. So it's not, you know, carved in stone. It's not the one rule you've got to keep doing. But you know, the question is more about, there were kingdoms that believed very strongly. If you know, and I think Joey kind of mentioned the other guys also had astrologers, but how did some of these things decline and some of them got wiped out? So what is your take on that?
Well, very good question. Excellent question, to be exact. Because time is space. Space is time. Okay, how do we define time? Time is the period that point 1 to point B that it takes. Now, so in history, every country is occupied by timings, by certain elements. I did a thorough study of China's history in the last 3,000 years. And I have identified the element per dynasty. But one thing for sure, if we look at the universe above our head, okay, anything that expands eventually will shrink. Anything that shrinks eventually will expand. So for example, in the case of the universe we live in, it all began with the black hole. All the energies absorbed in the black hole eventually is too much, so it vibrates and it split up. Then it finally explodes, and when it explodes, it gets into different mass, air mass. Eventually, the air can get together and form liquid. Over many billion years, this liquid becomes solid, and so stars and planets are formed. So at that moment, the universe is expanding, and this stage we are now in the galaxy. Many years later, the state we live in, okay, this galaxy we live in will shrink. Eventually, it will shrink back to a black hole, and everything we see we live in will disappear, and life begins again. Countries are the same, history is the same. Okay, the interesting thing about one thing about history, about the end of the Roman Empire, when empires got split into many states, eventually into many countries, approximately the similar time, China was united from many, many states into one country. So at that time, China emerges into one country and Europe became multiple countries. And that's part of history, very interesting. And so at the beginning, when a dynasty was supposed to be in, so all the right people through the power of the universe got attracted to the leader. And when this dynasty is about to end, the king or emperors would do stupid things. Eventually, all the good people would die out. And finally, another dynasty comes over. So these elements work in metal, water, with fire, and earth. So metal creates water, water creates, that would be a very smooth transition without fighting. Unfortunately, over thousands of years, majority are the opposite. So with the metal, then it would be conquered by fire, fire be conquered by water. So it's always wars and battles, fighting.
Yeah. So Paul, I have a question, just an add-on question there. Okay, so can we use geomancy for, you said macro feng shui for countries? Now we all know there's big tension between India and some of our neighbors. Now, how can we solve that? How can we do feng shui for India as a country? Is that possible? Like, I mean, is that even possible?
I think it's possible. Right now, if you really look back at history, India and China's friendship went back thousands of years. Mm-hmm. Okay, and personally, I have tons of friends who are Indians, especially Punjabis. And I have many Indian students myself, good friends of mine. Okay, these two countries have their own countries, two of the oldest cultures in the world. There's no reason why they should fight. Mm-hmm. They should not fight because of Mr. Trump. Okay, they should unite together, share the knowledge, okay, create the betterment of mankind. So it can be done. Share the principles and then leave the differences alone. There are a lot of things in common. Try to benefit the people between the countries. I think it can be done. Good feng shui, good harmony will help a lot. For sure, we will need something called macro feng shui. Do it on a big country scale instead of just a house.
Thank you, Paul. We've got to get to a couple more questions. The next question is for Kalpesh Ji. Kalpesh Ji, people that are wanting to hire a feng shui expert or an astrologer or a Vastu expert, how do they go about doing this? And maybe you can speak about specifically feng shui, Vastu. How would they go about choosing somebody, right? If you go and look at the yellow pages, or you Google, there's probably like a 100 or 1,000 experts that pop up, because you could be anywhere in the world today and you can pop up on as an expert in Toronto. So how do people take that decision? What would you tell our audience?
Can you repeat the question again, quick?
How does somebody choose a Vastu expert? What should they look into a Vastu expert? Like what questions should they ask? They're convinced now. Now our audience is convinced. We've got to do Vastu, right? They go home and say, okay, now let's call a Vastu expert. Okay, right now, you are our only Vastu guy. So we're saying, okay, call Kalpesh. But they're like, okay, you know what? We want to call 3 more people. If they call 3 more people, what questions should they ask? How do they choose a good Vastu person? What would be your, what would you tell them? How do they choose the right Vastu person?
Yes. So basically, Vastu it's called Indian architecture. So it has a base, right? So you have to make sure that the person who is trying to do something has to have a little base. Number one. Number two, very important, that how experienced it is. Like whatever I charge money here in this office, same money I charge in my London office, or like you can like same money I charge in a different part of the world, which is a Papua New Guinea. But to gain an experience, like the culture, knowledge, experience, and how best you can do, like in downtown Toronto, like 400 square feet apartment, like you have to design. Similar way in a smaller village in India, you are designing like 40,000 square feet big mansion, right? So if you don't have experience, you are not widely traveled, right, then it will become a little difficult. So make sure that you go to the right person who has a like wide experience, and if you follow those things, then you are going to get to the like and what you're looking for, right? So that I would say the best thing is just to go to highly experienced, well knowledgeable, and professional person.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Thank you, Kalpesh. So one additional question: we've heard of big buildings being built. Mr. Mukesh Ambani's house spent
Right.
$2 billion, and supposedly the Vastu went wrong. So,
Right.
so how can something like that happen? And can that be fixed? If Vastu went wrong, can you fix it, or is that done now? So it doesn't seem to have affected his wealth. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, it can be fixed. And just to be precise, like they did consulted the Vastu people while building the thing. But as I said, like if you are doing something big, which is world one of the best thing, you need like a team, right, who can advise you on a better part. But yes, the Vastu has a remedial thing. So if we do those remedies, right, we create something small thing, and that will help you to balance the energy flow. So yes, anything and everything at whatever the stage it is, whether it is very beginning stage or already built or already in trouble, but can be fixed. And that is what is our expertise, right?
Okay, thank you. Paul, we have a question here, from one of our audience who doesn't know their date of birth. Okay, if you don't know their date of birth, how can we help them? Or any of you, can you help any of your sciences? Can it help somebody who doesn't know the date of birth?
No problem. If they don't know the date of birth, that means they do not know the elements. Now, two things can be done. One is do the home or business based on general feng shui principles, ignoring the element. Second, don't forget the look, the way the face looks also indicates some elements. The shape of the face has 5 elements in it. And our face governs 100 years of our life. So if they know the approximate age, then the face will indicate what's going on. So you can also use that method. But I will use the general feng shui principles to help them. You can't go wrong with it.
Fantastic, Paul. And same with Joey, would that be the same thing? For astrology, you would need date of birth, I guess, right? So what if somebody doesn't have, would you do the same thing? How would you consult somebody that doesn't know the date of birth or time of birth?
Absolutely. This is a very good question. The more precise the birth date, the birth time, the better the result will be with the prediction. Now, that's to say that if we don't have that, can we work around it? Absolutely. There's a process called birth rectification. It's quite involved. Not everyone can do it, and it does take a lot of time and a lot of back and forth where you're taking the approximate day of birth and you're moving forward, moving back, and you're asking a lot of questions and you're trying to find the link that fits. That is a very involved process. The other simple thing which a lot of astrologers do when they're doing Gochar, which is when we're just looking at planetary transits, they'll cast a chart based on the position of the moon on the day that the person was born. So if you don't know your time, you can still cast a chart from the moon and that can be done. And then there's also prashna techniques and other things that we can do. But, you know, again, ideally, the best thing is if you have a birth certificate, because then from there we can do, but it doesn't always work for everyone. And interestingly enough, a lot of people that have afflicted ninth houses and other significations sometimes do have problems with birthday, like their birth times, like it actually shows in their horoscope. So go figure. But
just a clarification. So, and this is something I'm partly in jest, you know, is it what time zone does it matter? Is it time when you're born in India time zone, or in Feng Shui is it Chinese time zone? What is the time zone that matters, or does Canadian time zones count as well?
You know, the thing is that when we're talking specifically about Vedic astrology, there are very precise times recorded in the Shastra in what they call Gatikas and Vigatikas from the moment of sunrise relative to the longitude and latitude of where you are at the time you were born. I know that sounds really complicated. It kind of is. Fortunately for us, modern days, we have wonderful software that will calculate it within a few moments. So we don't have to worry about that too much.
Thank you, Joey. And Kalpesh, in Feng Shui, in Vastu, does the date of birth matter in Vastu as well?
Sure. So like astrology, how with the date, time, and place, we figure out individual's future. Similar way, like Vastu is kind of, Vastu is the predictive science of the place where you live or where you do the business, right? So the human who is connected to that place, if we do the Vastu and astrology align together, then you have a better results, basically. But yes, we can do generically good Vastu without the birth details. That's perfectly fine.
Okay, and a quick question to all three of you now. Paul, we'll start with you, okay? You got 5 seconds. When will this pandemic end?
Earliest would be around August 8th this year, would be 80-90%.
Okay.
To be precise, would be after February 2022.
Okay, thank you very much. Joey, do you have a prediction for the pandemic?
My gurus are going to kill me for doing this. I would say when Jupiter exits the sidereal sign of Capricorn and enters into Aquarius, it's going to go in April and then it's going to retrograde back. So we're not going to be fully done until about November. So, you know, again, I would agree with what Paul is saying. And if I'm not right, then you can have me back here and then you can rake me through the mud and we can talk about what went wrong with the prediction.
Okay, so one is November, we got February, and August, we 80-90%. So Kalpesh, let's hear your prediction.
Yes, it is like around November.
Around November? Okay.
Yeah, but the things will start reducing by April, April actually. Okay. And then, you know, by November, it would be kind of in control. Like you'll not see more variant coming out. Okay. So that's where it's going to kind of under control or end.
Okay. Fantastic. And you know, I think this has been a fantastic, session. We got 5 more minutes. If anybody's got some more questions, I have a question here, which is, I'm going to read it out. It's a little long question. It says, if you look at things from a psychological science, people do things based on their will. People that have strong willpower can achieve many good things, and those who do not have power cannot do things or do bad things. This Feng Shui, Vastu, astrology, aren't all of them essential, doing the same thing, such as kindling the inner will of a person, like some motivational speakers do, than anything else? So, and then do any of these have any tangible effect other than motivational aspect from the human mind or these situations? So the question is, when somebody comes to you, Joey, you tell them something, they then will start believing in it, and it's almost like placebo, that they start doing it. So, where is it? So that's the question. Is it that you're getting the will and the mind to start doing things? So what are your thoughts on that?
This would probably be a whole other 2 or 3 workshops we could talk about this. But to summarize, when we're talking about free will versus determinism, which is kind of what I feel this question is getting at, you know, I've heard it put one way very beautifully, and to some extent I do agree with that. What the universe gives to us is preordained. What we choose to give back to the universe, that's entirely up to us. Now, if we don't utilize our free will, then, you know, we can probably calculate what the person's going to do. But we need to awaken that free will through our own, what we call tapasya, through our own discipline, through our own expansion of consciousness. This is where yoga comes in. This is a whole other conversation. But hopefully that sort of the close notes of what you're looking for.
Thanks, Joey. Paul, what do you think? So there's thoughts, there's a question here which says, you go into Feng Shui, but you've told them you can grow, things can go up. You've got everybody working, and then even if you had not done it, they probably would have. So that's a hypothesis. What do you think? Is that true, or is there? How does this really work? Is the question. I mean, you know, the science, or is it the free will? Is it the person working harder, or if at the macro level suddenly the whole country is you know, galvanized, working together? So what is happening?
Well, there's a loaded question. Well, let me spend a minute or two on the human side. Every human being, okay, is governed by three major factors. One is called the born with factor. The second is the earth factor. And the third is the people factor. The born with factor means every secret in our human life is hidden in our date, time, place of birth, including our personalities. So the moment we are born, our major personalities are already determined. Okay, so some people pessimistic, some people optimistic, etc. However, because we are also affected by the energies around us, so the earth side affects us a lot. So when we do Feng Shui, we will set up things at least for the wealth, where the wealth center would be, the health, to make people healthier, the relations, and also the learning centers. These are the four major centers we had to set up in a home. Okay, and then the people factor is based on the date, time, or place of birth to determine what kind of people will get along with the subject person, or what kind needs to avoid. So how to match people, so that the people factor. If you get all the three factors together, you are a very successful person. If you goof up on any of them, then troubles may begin. That's how I look at it. As the countryside is concerned, I maintain one thing: try to share the togetherness, the similarities to help each other, and for the differences, don't overly emphasize them. We are just human. And back to your question earlier between India and China, why don't they set up a common trade area at the border so people can cross each other? Just like the one I went to visit a couple of years ago between Russia and Mongolia. So Russians speak Chinese and Chinese speak Russian. Amazing. So it's the same idea.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Paul. Kalpesh ji, the last question, we're almost out of time. You know, I think very similar to what Paul was mentioning. They got three aspects there. So, you know, the person's own efforts, hard work, if you know, so it's, if fate is predetermined, right? So one is you become almost fatalistic, right? So the one is, if everything is predetermined, why work hard, right? So what are your thoughts on that? And then second is, if anything's going to happen anyways, so it's you know, so what are your thoughts? There's a question here which says, if everything's predetermined, why work hard? Why even bother with any of this? So your thoughts.
Yes. So basically, as Lord Krishna says, karma nevadhikaraste. To do a karma is your job. That's why you are on the earth, right? So you have a food right in front of you, but you have to put it into the mouth. There is no machine which is going to put it into the mouth, or you don't want to take that food via syringe, right? So you want to enjoy. So you need an ambience, you need a people, you want your wife to prepare a food, you want a 5-star like Fairmount Hotel to have a dinner with the people. So this is what is our needs, right? So how we can make those things better with given limited time period. So one of the astrology parts say that the human being will alive for 108 years. which is Ashtottari. The another astrological part will say human being will alive for 120 years. So there's the Vishottari Dasha. So these are a calculation which can make your life better. If you really want to make your life better, follow these things because these are the proven thing. But if you feel that the way you are, if you are happy, you don't need anything.
So thank you very much, Kalpesh ji. On that note, I'd like to thank all our panelists. Paul Ang, fantastic to have you on board here. Joey, thank you. Kalpesh ji again, thank you very much. And we'll at this point we'd like to thank our sponsors. We got to thank Tangentia, our technology sponsor. We got to thank our annual sponsors, SBI, Bank Canada, ICICI Bank, Seneca College, Raymond James, GT20, TELUS Business, a gold sponsor, Turkish Airways, and our media partners, Weekly Voice and PTC Punjabi. And also, any of you are watching and you're not a member of the Indo-Canada Chamber of Commerce, please go to our website, join up. We need members. We need good people to join us. We're trying to really build a community here and make a difference. So all of you that are watching and those of you who are joining us for the first time, please write back to us at ICCC@icconline.org. Give us your any notes that you might have, any suggestions, and we look forward to seeing you again next week, same time, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, same here at Thursday Talks. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone. Bye now.
Thank you.
Bye.